growing up like for me? Well, my father always worked. He owned a car business. He was a mechanic and as well as a salesman. He had a garage on Church Street, downtown Toronto. And my mother was a housewife. And jump ahead, I guess, when I was 16, I'd been away with my father at a fishing thing up north of North Bay, and we were involved in a terrible car accident, in which the next day, my father was let out of the hospital, but he died. And my mother was not, I shouldn't say stuck, but she had 5 children. One was 1 year old and I was 16-year-old. So the world changed for all of us. My brother Donald, who was 15, we went to work full time. We went to school. We were both pretty good athletes. We thought we were anyways. My mother was, I guess you could say she was my best friend, but she was my consultant later on in life. She was the one that I'd go to when I need some answers. My mother was very tough. She believed in black and white. There was no chocolate coating with my mother, so you always knew how my mother stood. But my mother ran a nursery school. My mother cleaned floors. My mother ran a Bible school out of our house. She was an amazing lady, my mother. And one of the things that I guess we were taught growing up, even when my father was alive, he always stood up for the underdog. The boy that had the crippled leg, the one that had one arm. My mother never gave us heck for sticking up for those people, whether it meant a fight or what it was. We were told that those were the people you stand up for. So I had a phenomenal friendship with my mother. Sometimes I'd go there for a cup of tea later in years, and when I was hurting, she knew I was hurting, and she built me up. So I left encouraged when I went to my mother's. My mother was a godly lady. And I guess what sticks out with my mother, one of the things that really stuck out, and I guess as you get older, you only remember certain things. I used to send my mother a dozen roses, and I'd go and have a cup of tea a day later, 2 days later, and there was never more than 1 rose left. I said, "Mom, what'd you do?" "Well, I gave it to 11 ladies, son." And sometimes I had a few bucks and I'd send my mother some money, and in the mail I'd get 10 receipts for whatever amount of money I gave her. She gave 10 different charities. My mother was a giver. My mother was a phenomenal lady. She was very tough. She had to bring up 5 kids, and we were no angels. So that's sort of how it all started. My mother was the backbone of our family, and she taught us a lot. Some people say I was the black sheep of the family. My brothers and sisters all went to be missionaries. My brother Donald went to Bolivia, where his wife's parents had been. He spent his life in Bolivia. My sister Lisa went to South America. My brother Larry went to Africa. So when they came home, they always stayed at my place. And it was just part of our life. National Sports, which was my company, we supported my brothers and sisters because that's the way we were brought up. And one thing that I learned that's nothing to do with anything other than the fact you might go broke or you might get in trouble financially. One thing I found out in life, I never got in trouble financially giving money to God, ever. I always had money when I did things. I've been an entrepreneur my whole life. There's a lot of different definitions for an entrepreneur. An entrepreneur probably has maybe not a lot of brains. An entrepreneur has a lot of courage, a lot of drive, a lot of dreams, and that was me. I always thought I could succeed. I had many failures in my life, but I knew for sure that I would support my brothers and sisters. I supported them day one. I still support them. That was 60 years ago. My father, I didn't know my father at all like my mother. My mother, even though I was disciplined probably as much or more than anybody, she was my heart and soul. Because when my father, I got to know my mother better after my father got killed. I don't think I maybe was appreciative of my father as I should have been. He was a very generous man. He built a church in Novar, just north of Huntsville. He donated to everything my mother wanted to do. So I had a great father, but I didn't know my father like I knew my mother. The day I got the phone call at 4 o'clock on a Monday, I was working down at the garage and it said, "Norman, come home in a hurry." So I came rushing home and my father was dead. I guess it changed my life. I guess my mother said, "You're the man of the house." And I wasn't a very good man of the house very often, or as much as I should have been. But I had to take over. My father had a garage in Collingwood with 34 or 36 brand new cars that he sold. He had a Chrysler dealership. I drove every one of them to Toronto and sold them. I guess that was my indoctrination into business. An entrepreneur is somebody that has a drive and a dream, and I always had lots of dreams. I could have been a 50% partner with collegiate sports, but now I'm going on my own, and I started gym clothing, selling gym clothing to schools. So yeah, you're right, I've had lots of, not all successes, but I don't know, I guess it's in my genes. I still, at my age today, still dreaming of doing a couple more big things. My biggest joy, I'm not sure. What comes to memory right now? I went bankrupt in 1995. And here we had my brothers and sisters who were missionaries, many other missionaries, many other people that Nationals was sponsoring. We're at the end of the road. I told my employees, I don't know if we're going to make it. We had about 800 employees. We had 21 stores. And I'm going to cry again. We had prayer chains all across Canada. Sorry. And we had across Canada, across the United States. And I remember the Monday morning that it all came together. We brought all our people from head office into the office. And Lou, my friend, Lou Geens, he prayed. And of course everybody cries because there was so many dependent on national sports. I would say that's probably as big a thrill as anything, getting back on our feet. And it was a God thing because nobody would give me any money. I couldn't even get into a bank. Banks wouldn't even talk to me because back then banks didn't like retail. But a guy came and said, went into the accountants, Pete Marwick Thorne, and said, "Who's looking after the national bankruptcy?" And he was directed to the people that did it. And anyways, he said, "I'm starting a new company in Canada. I'm working for Congress Financial. We're an asset-based lending company. I worked for Norman when I was 19 years old at Young and Shepherd. And he gave me twice as much money as I had before I went bankrupt." So there's story after story. It's just, I love it when I walk into a store now, 15 years since I've owned it, and I get a hug by somebody. And I guess one of the things that was pretty impressive was the day after I sold National, and they had the party down here at the back, and Doug Hayes, who is now going to be president of National, said, "Anybody want to say to Norm?" And there was about 6 people or 7 people got up and spoke about me, not one of them talked about national sports. Not one of them. One had cancer, we looked after him. Another one went bankrupt, he needed money, we helped him. Somebody else was a cocaine addict. Somebody else was a drug addict. Somebody else was an alcoholic. And part of our philosophy was, again, probably, well, for sure because of my mother, we had 2 chaplains. We did everything we could for our employees. And for those 6 people to get up and speak, I was in tears. So those are the success stories. Not the fact we had some sales. We did $5 million in a week, which was huge. There's all different facets, but the big things that were lasting were these things, like I just said. My legacy, I hope, will never be national sports. What I would like them to be, I would like somebody to say I made them a better person. I'd like to say to them, wow, Norm did this, and it sure worked for him, so I tried it and it worked for me. I guess you always want it to be if you help somebody. There was a guy on TV not too long ago, I stuck in my memory, he said, this guy was a multi-billionaire. He said, 2 days after I'm dead, they won't remember my money, but they might remember if I did something good for somebody. So I think it's if you made somebody a better person, or that person that you don't know about in your whole life ever, that you helped out. My feeling about giving and helping, you're not supposed to tell anybody. If you want your happiness now, it says that in the Bible too, if you want your happiness now, tell the world. But if you want a real good winning success, don't tell anybody what you do, just do it. That's my mother, and that was driven into us. Well, I mean, on my 50th birthday, I remember there was about 500 people at the end of the park, and I said, the greatest thing that happened to me today, I have a new granddaughter named Jennifer Ashleigh. And that night was exciting. Daniel and Mary had their second child. Ryan was a healthy boy who was born a few years earlier. But 6 months later, Jennifer died. Jennifer changed the life of more people in 6 months than anybody. Changed a lot of people. She was always smiling. She was always happy. So we had a head office up here that was getting bigger. We had a lot of great people. I said, we got to start something, because this Jennifer is special. She's always smiling. In fact, there's a picture in my office. If you went into my office today, you'd see the same picture, little Jennifer lying there smiling. So we got together one night. I said something that night. I guarantee you one thing. Whatever you put into this charity, or whatever you do good in here, you'll reap tenfold back. And it's been so true. It's very infectious. Once you get involved with Jennifer Ashleigh, you don't leave. Everybody laughs at me when I get somebody to do something. I said, it's not a 1-year deal. You have a 7-year contract, and after 5, I'll renew it. So you can never leave till Jane and I retire. So that's my story on that. My son went through tough times after that, very tough times. He couldn't handle it. And it was a very trying, hard time. But then back, I'm not sure how many years ago, maybe 10 years ago, him and I were in our trolley, the trolley we have taking kids up and down the hill at our picnics. He said to me, Dad, I gotta tell you something. He said, after all these years, the passing of Jennifer, it's a little easier, but look at the thousands of people you've helped. And it's pretty amazing. A terrible tragedy of losing Jennifer, but there's maybe been 10 or 15,000 people helped since then. So God works in strange ways. I love driving the trolley because I see the real people. I see those kids, and the one in particular always gave me a big hug. They know me. They won't wait for they don't want to take the All-Trans bus. They want to come on Norm's bus. And we sing, we talk. Some of my grandkids have been the prince and the princess and the queens and the kings. and we have a ball up and down those hills. But I see these real people. But again, there's one little thing that happened one time before the bus. Williamson Motors used to lend us a couple of vans to take people up and down the hill. One van broke down, and people were waiting a half an hour to go up the hill. It was just me driving in the bus in this little van. This lady sat in the front seat, and she said to me, "Sir, I just want to thank you." I said, "For what?" She said, "You saved my life." I said, "How did we save your life?" She said, "Well, Jennifer Ashleigh paid for an hour for nurse's care for me once a week. Without that hour, I would have never made it." So it put things in perspective. And again, sadly to say, sometimes it's mostly moms with kids. But I think, again, this is one time that I'm really, really thankful for all the ladies and all the volunteers at Jennifer Ashleigh, because that day is second to none. We were taught, and I was taught, and we did it at National, we did it with Jennifer Ashleigh, do things first class. And we do it first class. Not only the food's first class, they leave here with the bags of toys and gifts and things, and nobody wants a parent or two parents with sick kids. They're usually in wheelchairs, and we love them. And I think we start out as maybe thinking about it as a fundraiser, but it's not a fundraiser, it's an awareness. And I would say a lot of our good donors today have come to those picnics and seen what we really do. When I drive that trolley at 4:30, when I go up the hill for the last time, when I come home, I can't hardly walk because I won't let anybody else drive my trolley. I sometimes stop for 2 minutes to get a cob of corn, but that's my bus, up and down that hill. And I got to know a lot of great people. So that's no other question about it. It's not eating the food. It's not yeah, we do so many great things that day. It's exciting. But my job and my fun is driving that trolley, because I see the love of those children and those parents, and I don't know, you can't explain it if you don't see them. The hugs. There's Norm. There's Norm. There's Norm. Thank you so much. And one thing that I believe about our charity is we don't care what your color is. We don't care what your religion is. We don't care about any of that stuff. If you need help and we can help, we will help. I think I got to tell you one of the story that in fact, it ended this year when Jane called me, because we had our first picnic ever canceled was this year because of the COVID. Jane said, "Do you know what today is?" And I said, "No." She said, "This was the day, this is their 28th or 29th year or 30th year that we've had this picnic. But for some strange reason, not strange, there's no such thing as strange, on that Saturday, for 28 years, it's never rained." And when I took the trolley up the hill at 4:30 that day, it started to rain. This year, first year in all these years, it rained. You can say it's a coincidence, but I don't believe in coincidence. The funny story is that somebody said to me, "You know what coincidence is? When God wants to stay anonymous." That's kind of a neat story, because that's a true story. And it was raining in Sanford. It was raining in Uxbridge, and you know it. And there was black clouds everywhere. We didn't rain. And nobody can defy that, because we were all here. So that was pretty exciting. So, yes, like my son Daniel said, "See, Dad, because of one death of Jennifer, which was awful, changed my life. It ruined me for a long time. See what God has done and how He's provided for, if it's 16,000, hopefully it'll be 100,000. And that's why we need everybody to be part of it." I would say a huge thank you to every donor, and we need you. We still have to turn down some people, because my goal was always, and was able to do my wish for the first 10 years. We were able to help everybody we wanted to help. But then we have to start picking and choosing a little bit, because we just don't have the money. We have some phenomenal donors. And it's not necessarily just the biggest donors. It's the donors that stay with us forever. Every month, or every 6 months, or once a year. The history of the farm is back in, I guess, 1980. I'd had, we go way back before that. We go back into the 60s. I was selling sporting goods with John Lennox at Collegiate Sports, and I was calling on the schools, and I called on the school in Milton, and I saw a horse going around the track, and I don't know any reason why, but John Lennox and I bought it with no money, didn't tell our wives, and then 25 years later was able to buy the farm, move National Sports head office up here, and the next year we somehow ended up with a world champion horse called Camfella. Best horse in North America in 1982 and 1983. Won 28 races in a row, and retired the richest horse of all time in the standardbred business, became the world's best stallion. And one of the things that I want to see happen, and there's been a lot of people praying about it, is this farm will be the home of Jennifer Ashleigh forever, and this property will be used for God for long after I'm gone. Whether it's a wellness center, whether it's training athletes, whether it is, I'm not sure what it's going to be, but God willing, it won't ever be sold. So that's maybe my last dream or my last entrepreneurial thing. In fact, I did something today that's strange. In the Bible, when they captured Jericho, they had to walk around it. So this morning, me, I get ideas quick. I said, you know what, I'm going to walk around this property 7 times, and I'm going to ask God to get going and help me to get this thing going. So I walked all the way around the whole farm today, right from the back to the front, up the hill, back around. And she said, what the heck are you doing? My daughter said, how come you're out of breath? So when you're an entrepreneur, you do a lot of strange things. So anyway.
Did you get the answer you were looking for?
No, it's got to do it 7 times, so we've got 6 more to go.
No, 6 days.
What my purpose is, that's a really hard question. I don't know what my purpose is. I don't know. Try to set a good example, I guess. I've seen every walk of life come through here with sick children. So money didn't heal it. Success in business didn't heal it. So I think we all have I wouldn't say a duty, but we have an opportunity to help these people. And I've been the blessed guy who drives the bus or goes to Bolivia. I see it firsthand. And I don't think there's anything I can say that other than I'm a blessed guy. God has kept me around a long time for whatever reason. And Jennifer Ashleigh's taught me blessing upon blessing that I'm a very lucky individual. So, I mean, I've told a story many times years ago. I used to say, I've driven a Rolls Royce with $1 million in my I've driven a Rolls Royce with $1 million in my pocket, and I've taken pop balls back to buy milk. So I know both ends of the spectrum. But it's what you do today that counts. And whether it's buying somebody a cup of coffee, whether it's just saying hi, giving somebody a hug, whatever it is. And the secret is, you don't have to tell everybody. Do it.